Welcome to My Familia Homeschool. My name is Marissa and I live in Miami, Florida with my husband William and my two daughters Abby and Ellie. We are a family that has chosen homeschool as the way that we educate our kids. We are a bilingual family, so I've decided to make my channel a little bit more bilingual and add in some content in English. Today is our first video. I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about our homeschool story, how we fell upon homeschool. We started homeschooling kind of out of accident. It wasn't something that I planned. It wasn't something that I've always thought I was going to do. I've heard a lot of people talk about how they always knew they were going to homeschool their family. That wasn't the case for me. So let's start at the beginning. I was born in Kansas and lived there until the 4th grade. I did middle school and high school in Mexico. That's why I speak Spanish. My parents were missionaries there, so I was a missionary kid and I loved it. It was amazing. I think that's kind of where my history with homeschool began. When I was younger, like I said, I grew up in a small town in Kansas. I didn't really have any information or any contact with people who homeschooled. There were two girls. They were kind of friends of ours. They went to our church and they homeschooled. Both of their moms would homeschool them. So that was really the only idea that I had about homeschool, but we didn't really know what they did. We weren't super close, so it wasn't something that I had a whole lot of understanding about. When we moved to Mexico, my parents gave me the option to be homeschooled. Right away I said, no, I don't want to be one of those weird homeschoolers. I want to go to school. I want to learn Spanish. I want to have friends. Do not make me homeschool. They let me choose, so I went to a school there in Mexico. I was thrown into the Spanish language, learned pretty quickly. I'm really thankful for that choice that I made. So from that point, homeschooling was never something that I considered and never something that I thought that I would do with my kids. I moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma for college and met my husband there. Eventually we got married and had our first daughter in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I got my bachelor's in human and family services. I worked at a nonprofit organization as a preschool teacher and later as a parent educator. So I have a bit of background in education. For the first year of her life, Abby was either with me for the first 3 months and then with my mother-in-law who came and stayed with us for 6 months. But then she went to daycare because I worked outside of the home. When Abby was 2.5, we moved to Miami, Florida to help out with the church down here. When we moved, I was already pregnant with Ellie. I began working as an English teacher and Abby again went to daycare. That didn't last very long because a couple months later the pandemic hit, everything shut down, and I was able to stay home with Abby. That was already something that was kind of stirring up in my heart. I didn't want someone else to be raising my daughter. I wanted to be able to be home with her. And so the pandemic hit and kind of made that come true. I was coming to the end of my pregnancy with Ellie, and so I just remember we would go out and walk for hours and hours and hours because there was really nothing to do. Abby, like I said, was about 2.5 at that time when Ellie was born, and so I started to do some preschool type activities with her. It wasn't really with the idea of homeschooling, but we were at home, there was really nothing else to do, and I knew it was something that she enjoyed. At first we started to do just some arts and crafts projects, some sensory tables, stuff like that, and then I started to work letters and numbers with her. We were kind of homeschooling, but I didn't even know it. Like I said, I started homeschooling by accident. After everything started clearing up with the pandemic, I started looking for different activities to get Abby involved with so she could interact with other kids, have some socialization. We looked at gymnastics, we looked at soccer, we looked at a lot of different options. But then I fell upon a homeschool co-op. I saw that they had some really fun options for classes and they were available for her age. She was about 4 at the time. They had like science in the kitchen, arts and crafts, a lot of really fun options, and it was cheap. It was a lot cheaper than some of the other options for gymnastics or ballet here in Miami. And so we decided to try it out. Not really with the idea of looking into homeschooling, but because it was cheap and there was some fun activities. So we would go every Friday to this co-op and Abby would have 4 classes. We would be there from about 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. and it was great. It was a great experience. While we were there, they had this moms group that I was able to get involved with, and they were studying the book, The Wild and Free. I joined the group, not necessarily, again, to learn more about homeschooling, but because I wanted to make friends. I didn't have many friends. We were kind of all by ourselves here in Miami. So I thought, I'm here anyway, why not? So I joined the group, started reading the book, and I literally devoured it. The ideas and the concepts that were in that book, how they talked about homeschooling, how they talked about conserving childhood, how they talked about living a life of wonder, it resonated with me completely. And as we went through those 4 or 5 months that Abby was in this co-op, I just started to get a feeling inside that this was the choice for us. This was what we were supposed to do. I was beginning to feel that we were called to homeschool. So as time went on, I thought about it a lot. I prayed about it a lot. Of course, my husband and I would have conversations. I talked to him about what I was reading and what I was talking to other people about. The co-op was a great opportunity for me to talk to others about their homeschool story, their homeschool journey, and the reasons why they chose to homeschool. Our anniversary is in May. So that year in May, we went out to celebrate. We went to a couple places and then we sat down to talk, and I started talking to my husband about the things that had been on my heart, the things that I had been thinking about. I really wanted his feedback. We had talked about it. He'd said comments about homeschooling, but I really wanted to establish whether this was what we were going to pursue. This is what we were going to do. So we sat down, we talked about it. I shared my heart, and he told me, yeah, I think this is right. I think this is what we're supposed to do. And so from then on, our choice was made. Homeschooling is the way that we have chosen to educate our children. And we're really kind of just at the beginning of this journey. My oldest daughter is 5 and my youngest is 2.5. And even though we've been doing activities at home, accidental homeschooling, since Abby was about 2.5, we're really just now starting the formal years of education. And so I'm super excited to share with you. I love talking about resources, curriculum, ideas, activities, and just things that I'm learning in general about homeschooling, mothering, and just life in general. So if that's something that interests you, if that's something that sounds like it might be beneficial for you, I'd love to invite you to subscribe to this channel to join us in this journey of homeschooling. I hope to see you next time in My Familia Homeschool.